What's up, What's up, YouTube? In this video, we're gonna take a look at some images that I captured the other night. I met up with a couple of other Pentaxians, and there's this really small fly flying around, which I don't know if you can see in video. Anyway, there, nailed it. Gonna take a look at some images that I captured. I met up with a couple of other Pentaxians. It was late at night. We went to downtown Toronto. Pretty much just hung out along the lakeshore around. If you're familiar with the Toronto area, we hung out at Trillium Park for part of our session. Anyway, the plan we had was to go get some wildlife, go to the Scarborough Bluffs, get some sunsets, and then, at the end, head into the city to get some street sort of, cityscape kind of things. But the sun went down way earlier than what was actually stated on one of those sunset apps or the Weather Network. The timing was completely wrong, and it took forever to get to downtown Toronto. So that whole plan just got completely and utterly destroyed. So we just went straight to Toronto, did some night photography, looking at the CN Tower, as well as some street stuff, with the car lights going by and that kind of thing. And what else did we shoot? Anyway, I'll just show you the images, and I will explain how these images were captured, the camera settings, using tripod, which I used the tripod pretty much for all of it, long shutter speeds, things like that, and just the heights and why I chose to shoot what I did, the way I did, things like that. So let's just get right down to it. Alright, so when we first arrived on site, the sun was just starting to go down. It was pretty interesting because the color shifts were pretty drastic, and it was happening very quickly. So this was the very first image that I grabbed. I just wanted the golden tinge from the sun going down across the buildings and everything, which I think this came out really well. The sky's still blue, but you still have, the reflection within all the buildings and the golden tones. Golden hour, baby! And so the next one was, this we were not expecting. The sky all of a sudden just went super pink. The gold color hues just really popped. Yeah, it was nuts. We were not expecting that. So the first shot, and this was done on a tripod, I was using, since it's a crop sensor camera, 55 millimeters, and I was using the Sigma 1770 f2.8-4 DC Macro HSM lens. So the exposure was 30 seconds at ISO 1600 at f8. The super gold one was f11 ISO 100 30-second exposure. And I kept adjusting the exposures just based on what the meter itself was letting me know. If it was even exposure, overexposed, underexposed, just trying to even it all out. Now, this was a complete accident. I was just trying to get the city line of the CN Tower and downtown Toronto, and over here is Billy Bishop Island Airport, and I didn't even realize that I had actually gotten a plane on takeoff. So this was an accident, and it actually worked out really well. So after we saw this, we're like, yo, oh man, I gotta get more planes. Unknown to ourselves, there was a lot of air traffic. And these are the other two Pentaxians that I was shooting with. So, I zoomed in a tiny bit here. And let me go back. So again, my tripod was set up. There were some rocks, which you can't see. But there were some rocks. I dropped my tripod as low as it would go. I have one of the tripods where the legs completely spread out. So, dropped that pretty low, and then just went with my exposure from there. And it was 17 millimeters fully wide, 20-second exposure, ISO 100 at f11. Now the next one was ISO 2500 to minimize blur, which is still a little blurry, but it still works. f4, and exposure was 1/8 of a second. Now, I like this shot because it's a story. You can see the tripod on the one side, and both photographers are shooting directly into, they're looking right into the image itself of the city line in the background there. So, it's sort of like leading lines without leading lines. I just think it's a pretty interesting image. And again, CN Tower once more. However, one thing I did notice is it's really, really difficult in low light to use live view with focus peaking to actually see your focus status. Because there's a lot of grain and snow on the back of the screen, so it makes it very, very, very difficult to decipher if it's snow on the screen or if it's actually in focus. So anyway, again, more air traffic. I believe this was a helicopter flying around. Yeah, it was a little frustrating, but it's an ambient shot, right? It's the environment. That's just how it is. There's a lot of air traffic. There's not much else you can do about that. So this was a 30-second exposure, ISO 100 at f8, and I was at 35 millimeters wide. Next image. So this one, this was at a pier. Again, had my tripod down fairly low. I wanted to get the silky smooth water and everything. And this was at ISO 100, aperture f8, 30-second exposure, and I was 24 millimeters wide. Because we were kind of staggered in regards to where we were shooting. So, one person's here, and then I'm back here, so I had to shoot in between the other two. It still worked, still, you bring the right lens and you can make it happen. And this was another accident. This plane turned its marker lights on in the middle of this exposure. It's like it was representing for Italy. You got the green, white, and red. There you go. And then there was another plane coming across here. Yeah, so it was another pseudo accident photo. I was not looking for the planes on this one. I just wanted the rest of the scene, but this actually is pretty cool. And this was another 30-second exposure, ISO 100 at f8, 17 millimeters wide. And this one, this is funny. We were talking about the Pentax K-3 and its 1.6 million ISO. So the other two Pentaxians were shooting the K1, and they were talking about the 819,200 ISO. I was shooting my K3, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna jack mine up. So this is going to be a little interesting. Let's see, which one is this? That's 8 stacked. Okay, so this is a shot at 51,200 ISO on the K3. So this is 1/8 of a second, f8, and 17 millimeters wide. It's pretty grainy, as you can easily tell. Now let's go back one, and this is 16,000 ISO. Yeah, still pretty grainy. Oh, CN Tower looks pretty cool. And let's go back. So this is 8 images at 51,200 stacked on top of each other. It's blurred, but it's a lot cleaner. Yeah, I just wanted to see how this would actually work, and this is the 16,000 one, another 8 images stacked together. I probably should have done just 4 images stacked, but doing image averaging with stacked photos really can clean up your images a lot. And you'll see here the water's a lot smoother as well. Yeah, let's go to the 51,000. Yeah, so the water's a lot smoother, and then if you go to the single images, the water's a lot choppier, right? So it does actually, it is another technique that you can use, especially if you do not have an ND filter. You can just, shoot interval composite and go from there. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And now let's go to the next folder. Let's see, close that. Bring this back. Now let's go to the inukshuk. There's only 2 images on this one, so. Open with viewer. So off to the side, there is this inukshuk, which has an interesting placement because on the one side here you've got the CN Tower and then you've got the inukshuk. And there was some construction happening behind here. They weren't actually working, but they left their floodlights on, which is why this is lit up. It's brilliant. It's perfect. So, we had to grab that. It was just, it was an interesting shot. So, again, 17 millimeters wide, 13-second exposure, ISO 1000 at f8. Is that 13? I'm not even sure how this works. 13 over 1. I don't even know. I think it was 13 seconds. Yeah, and then let's go to the next one. And I just, just to get the full height and everything, just shot it in portrait. And same settings, except this is, ISO 1000, f8, 13 second, 17 millimeters. Now, let's go to the next set. Uh-oh. What did I just do? There we are. Okay, so there's a couple here. Now, there's a place in Toronto called Ontario Place. They have a drive-in movie theater, and why can I not find open with? There we go. And they have a drive-in movie theater, and there used to be like an amphitheater thing. And their Cinesphere, which looks like one of the letters is dead. Anyway, so this is right off, just off to the side. This is what they call the marina area. So there's a bunch of floating docks that you can't see in this image, but there's some other dock areas here. So people just come by with their boats, and then they can walk into Ontario Place. This used to be a staple of Toronto. They're trying to revitalize it. And this was shot 17 millimeters wide, and I was right at the edge of the walkway, right at the edge. There's no barrier to stop you from falling in, but I had to get as close as possible to the water, because that's the shot I was actually looking for. I didn't want any part of the walkway or the boardwalk or anything in the image whatsoever. I wanted just straight up water, right up. So this was I guess 1/5 or 5-second exposure. I gotta talk to the developer about how this is coming out. I'm not sure exactly. Actually, let me see what the actual exposure was here. 5 seconds. Okay. Yeah, so it was a 5-second exposure. And this is ISO 100 at f10. And the next image, I really like the next one. Just the glow. The glow and, the stars. Except for the Cinesphere part is, maybe I exposed a little too much for the highlights, but I wanted to get that, just the glow and hues coming right off the water, and then you can see all the docks and stuff. Okay, so the next set, and this is where we went absolutely crazy when we went to do all the street shooting. This was nuts. It was fun. It was one of my favorite things to actually do. So this is Princess Gates for the Canadian National Exhibition, or in Toronto we just call it the CNE. Now, this is a street that leads right over to the main road, Lakeshore. And all these lights are from one of the public transit buses that was going by. It just happened to be that the way the lights streamed, they seemed to cut off right by where the building is, except for the part at the bottom, but the very top kind of cuts right off, except for this line here. But it was just interesting, and this area here, these are all, I believe these are just from the LED lights because they flash. The next one, oh, actually, sorry, my bad. This was shot at 17 millimeters wide open, I believe 10-second exposure, ISO 100 at f4. And the next one is 17 millimeters, 10 seconds, ISO 100 at f8. And I wanted to make sure the CN Tower would actually be in this shot clean. So it was pretty close. This is the very top light of another public transit bus. Another vehicle going the other way on the street as the bus is coming towards us. So again, had my tripod fairly low, wanted to get a low angle shot. I love my low angle shots. And this is obviously right by the Fort York National Historic Site, just off, not far from where we were before for the last image that I showed. And yeah, so we were just trying to shoot the buses as they were coming by, and I really like this one. This reminds me of like some kind of crazy warp speed, and this color shift hue right here. Oh man, that's sick. That is sick. Yeah. So again, 13 seconds, ISO 100, f11, 17 millimeters. Except I was right at the edge of the road, like right at the edge. Vehicles are coming, they'd see me, and then it was just like slow right down. Yeah, so the next one. Now this one, in hindsight, I kind of wish I had started this exposure and left it on longer so that the trail of lights would have started from back here. Because it just sort of appears right here, right? I would have actually preferred to have it start over here and then continue on. The only problem is, it's hard to know if they're going to slow down, if they're going to maintain the same speed. You know, it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to play with different settings and, you know, just learn from reviewing your own images at the end of the day. So this was done 13-second exposure, ISO 100, f11, 17 millimeters. In hindsight, I think I would have extended this to probably 20 seconds. Just to get the bus from back here, so it would be a steady stream instead of just stream starting out of nowhere, right? But like I said, you know, you review your images, you see what happened, what you can do to change the perception or perspective, you know, for the next time, because there will definitely be a next time. And yeah, so as we were walking around, we went to go check out the Fort York thing because we thought we could get up. There's like a bridge or walkway, something that we thought we saw up here, and you know, so as I saw this, I was like, oh, this would be pretty cool. Just get the lines and then the CN Tower, like, you know, I call this one frames because you've got a frame here, you've got a frame here, you have another frame here, another frame here, another frame here, another one. You know what I mean? So it's just like a frame within a frame within a frame within a frame. I just thought it was a pretty cool shot to grab, and this was at another 30-second exposure, ISO 100 at f8. I could have raised the ISO and made it a slower shutter speed, but I wanted the low ISO just to maintain all the detail that's all in here. So the next image is this one. So it's the same location, except I literally took my camera off the tripod, laid down on the ground, and just put the camera right down. Went 17 millimeters wide, 15-second exposure, ISO 100 at f8. This one is more about leading lines. Everything is just, you know, it's super wide, tapering right down to the very, very end there. Still have the CN Tower off to the side. My wife says she prefers this image over the other one. But, you know, I just wanted to just do something different. I like trying different things and experimenting. That's just how I am. And the final image is this residential condo building. I was trying to get the car lights, but it didn't work out the way I actually wanted it to. Again, you know, trying to do the whole framing thing. But I wanted to have vehicles that were going this way as well as vehicles going that way at the same time. I wanted the whole street to be lit with streaming lights, but it just never happened. Yeah, so, I mean, that's really, you know, that was the gist of it. This I shot at 15-second exposure, ISO 100 at f7.1. So yeah, it was fun. Just going out there and just strictly doing night photos. There's so much creativity that you can actually do, and there's so much experimentation that you can actually pull off in night photography. It's fun. It's really fun. You know, you can play with your shutter speed, the aperture, get different streaming lights. You can freeze action with a high enough ISO. You can experiment with you know, the interval composite shooting, or taking multiple shots in succession and then stacking them later in post to see how that cleans up. I mean, the exploration that night photography can actually give you is pretty much endless. There's so much more you can do, because daylight, you're limited. It's going to be a faster shutter speed, lower ISO, that kind of thing. Nighttime, raise the shutter speed, lower the shutter speed, play with your exposure, white balance. I mean, there's just, the list just goes on and on and on. But anyway, so those are the images that I captured, and yeah, hopefully next time it'll be a bit brighter out so I can actually get the other guys on video. That'd be nice, as long as they're cool with it. I know one of them is. He doesn't care. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like the video, leave a like. If you have not already, please do subscribe. It helps me out, as well as any other channels that you land on where you feel the content is worthwhile. Subscribe to them too, you know. It's just how it's supposed to be. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. You'll get notified when I upload new content. You have any questions, comments, leave them down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, I leave that information at the bottom of the description. And that's pretty much it for me. I guess it's time for me to go. You guys will see me on my next video. I'm out.